All right. So my name is Brendan Park. It's good to meet all of you. I am a scholarship advisor and a writing specialist with the Scholarship Opportunities Program. So I've been working here for several years. I'm a UCI alum. I got my MFA at UCI in creative writing and fiction in 2014. And I worked at the university for a number of years as a lecturer in composition, academic English, creative writing, things like that. So I love writing. I love working with student writing. And then I started working in the Writing Center for a while, working one-on-one with students, and realized I really loved that. And that led me to advising with Scholarship Opportunities Program, where I get to work with undergraduates like you now. And I'm joined by a guest presenter, Karishma Muthakumar, who I'll introduce a little bit later here. But for now, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm just admitting one more person. Okay. All right. So Scholarship Opportunities Program is here to advise you for prestigious scholarships. At the outset, I want you to know of several other important resources that you have available to you on campus. So the first is the Office of Financial Aid, which we are frequently confused with. We're not the Office of Financial Aid. The Office of Financial Aid funds need and merit-based scholarships that are funded through UC Irvine. So they're also the people that you go to for the FAFSA deadline for federal funding every December. And they have a number of deadlines for local scholarships in February. So that's one key resource that you should know about from the very beginning of your time at UCI. As soon as you get here in your year one, another service that I really always want to encourage you to use is the Writing Center. I worked as a writing specialist there for a while. It's a great place to go regardless of what you're applying for or what you're doing in class. A lot of people think of the Writing Center as a place that is primarily there to help them fix papers, but they work with you on any writing that you have. That includes applications for graduate school, medical school, job applications, personal writing. Really, they're there to help your journey, as a writer in any way they can, and that's something you should keep in mind. So they also don't just work on polished drafts. You don't just bring something that's ready for them to be fixed or to have them check the grammar on. They work with you at all stages in the process, including brainstorming, drafting, outlining. It's a great resource. And then finally, the Scholarship Opportunities Program, which we're here to talk about today. We serve students who are sophomores until recent alumni. And we specifically advise for merit-based scholarships. And so I've got one more person to admit. Okay. For merit-based scholarships, so these are for high-achieving students. These are not need-based scholarships. They're external to UC Irvine as well. So we're talking about scholarships that are funded through outside agencies. Primarily, the scholarships that we advise for involve research, public service, or are for graduate school. And there's plenty of overlap in those categories as well. All right. Okay. So in terms of our roles and services, outreach consists of events like today, right, where we are advertising the awards to undergraduates through workshops or information sessions. Also, when we have scholarship agencies like the Rhodes Agency or the Fulbright who come to campus to advertise, we will host events with them. We also occasionally host events like a faculty winners panel, so you can hear from UCI faculty who have won some of these awards, or we host panels about graduate school, things like that. So that's kind of our outreach component. On the other end of things, we do recognition for our winners, so things like press releases, recognition ceremonies, those kinds of things. But the bulk of our services really is in this middle one here for advising. And for advising for these various awards, we offer really comprehensive support. So that includes throughout the entire application process. So for a number of these awards, the application process can take up to 6 months long. And during that time, we provide feedback on multiple drafts of not only your application essays, including personal statements and grant proposals of various types and things like that, but also on your application materials themselves. We consult with your letter writers. We give them feedback. And for 13 of our awards, there's actually a campus nomination that is required to even apply for the awards. You have to actually be officially endorsed by the university in order to move forward with your application. And so we actually coordinate those faculty interview panels. We invite different people to come and interview on those, including at times some of your supporters. And then we synthesize all of that feedback and finalize the endorsement, and we write a letter of endorsement on your behalf if you are endorsed by the university, which is kind of a neat thing that ends up being like kind of a fourth letter of recommendation for your scholarship application that's from the university itself, written through Scholarship Opportunities Program. In addition to that, we also provide additional support services for interviews. So for example, if you are invited to the finalist stage of a scholarship that you have applied for, then we set up mock interviews. We're actually just about to start that process for this year right now with the Fulbright. We just heard back that we have a record number of Fulbright semifinalists at the moment. So soon we're hoping some of them will get interviews, and we'll be setting up mock interviews to help them prepare. And another valuable resource that we offer is we have a very large archive of past winning applications from competitive applicants. And we make those available to you and guide you through rhetorical reading strategies on how to analyze those applications and see what makes for a competitive application and a winning application. Broadly speaking, our awards are divided into 2 application cycles. So you can see this column over here on the left. We've got our fall awards. So you commence applying for these in October and November. And the fall awards, which we call our Explorers 11, we have 11 different awards there. These are the awards that undergraduates are eligible for. We don't have any awards that freshmen are eligible for, but there are a number of these awards that that sophomore students are eligible to apply for. Some of them fund graduate study, but the bulk of our fall awards fund undergraduate. So you can see that we've broken them up into these different categories of research, service and leadership, internship, abroad. But you'll also notice that there's overlap among these different categories. So for example, the Fulbright is obviously an abroad scholarship. We have to go abroad to do that, but also it has a research component, right? So depending on which award you apply for. So the awards, by the way, that you see in italics are awards that require nomination. And then over here on the right-hand side, we have our spring awards. So these will commence in April this year. It's a 6-month application process. And these fund graduate study only. So to be eligible for these awards, we're looking at juniors, seniors, and recent alum. So let's see, just want to get a quick show from everybody. I'm curious about our group here. Will you type in the chat what year you are? I'm just curious to see what year everybody is at the moment. Third year, second year, third, fourth, junior, first year, second year, third, fourth, fifth, first. Okay, quite a mix. All right, great. Yeah, a lot of times at our workshops we have a lot of people who are in their freshman and sophomore years, and fewer in our junior and senior years. But this time around, it looks like we've actually got a really even distribution. So if you're in your first or your second year, you might really be thinking about some of these Explorers 11 awards coming up next fall, beginning that application process. And if you're a junior, senior, recent alum, then you might be thinking about our upcoming application process for the Trailblazers 10. All right. So in terms of the advising process itself, we've kind of come up with this graphic to sort of provide a narrative for the application process. As it is a long and complex process, it helps to kind of have a map, if you will, for it. So there are two stages here, the exploring stage and the mapping stage, that kind of happen before you actually begin applying to the scholarship itself. And it's important to remember for these awards that as they are highly competitive and prestigious awards, that it's really about more than just the award and winning the award itself. And it really is a personal and professional development journey applying for these. Every year we have students who don't win the award that they're applying for, but as a result of the application process and the mentoring and working with their SOP advisors and faculty mentors on the revision process, end up writing dynamite graduate proposals and getting into top-ranked graduate programs of their choices and things like that. And the grant writing skills that come about as a part of this process remain broadly applicable to you throughout the rest of your undergraduate career, and we hope beyond. So that's something to keep in mind. During the exploration phase, prospective scholarship applicants are going to be doing pre-writing activities, journal activities, uncovering insights about themselves and the scholarship itself. Then during what we call the mapping phase, potential applicants begin connecting their own insights about their goals and their own interests to the actual selection criteria and application requirements for the scholarships of interests. Trailblazing is kind of what we call the actual drafting process. That's where you're directly involved with a SOP advisor like myself or my colleague Courtney Santos, who's also an MFA graduate from a UC. And that's the time during which you're really in the weeds, drafting your essays, you know, revising again, you know, thinking hard about how you're going to apply for the award. And then climbing, you know, sort of reaching the summit. We think of this as once you have really put together a solid application and you're presenting it to the faculty committee here at UCI. And then after that, we think of kind of making your mark at the end when you finally come to the end of the application process. So again, for the fall awards, they begin October, November, and you don't end the application process till winter quarter. For the spring awards, you begin in April and don't end until September in most cases. So it is a journey and it is a process. Starting this past fall, we initiated something that we're really happy about called SOP Prep. So this is a course that we run through Canvas and Structure. It's not associated with EEE or UCI. We do it on the free Canvas platform. We can talk about that here in a little bit. But it's a new online course to help prepare you to get ready to apply. So those two initial phases I just talked about in our map, the exploration and mapping phase, actually take part within this online environment that we've created for SOP Prep. So during this time, as you can see in the right-hand column over here, you have guided journal entries and, you know, and reading scholarship materials, defining your leadership aims and practices, reviewing applications, past winning applications, analyzing things like that. And then towards the end of the mapping phase, you actually get access to a virtual advisor quiz that my colleague Courtney Santos developed through Qualtrics. And it's a really cool thing because like I said, we advise for 21 different awards, and that can be a little bit daunting to figure out which is the best fit for you. But this this interactive Qualtrics quiz kind of takes your interests and everything that you input into it and comes out with a few suggestions for which awards might be most applicable for you, which is a really cool feature. A lot of times it comes out with good suggestions. It may miss here or there, but that's why we have human advisors for you guys as well. So during this whole process of working through SOP Prep, as you're writing through your journal entries, you'll be getting feedback from one of our highly knowledgeable and skilled student workers during that time. All right. Let's see if there's anything else I'm going to say about SOP Prep. So the prep course itself, as I mentioned, is on Canvas. To be eligible for it, you just need to be a sophomore or higher standing with a cumulative GPA of at least 3.0. It's open entry, open exit. The link is right here. If you want to join the course right after this workshop, you're welcome and invited to do so. I'm going to duck out of the PowerPoint presentation here real quick and just show you the quickest way to find it through our website. So our website is scholars.uci.edu, or if you forget that, it's easy just to Google it, UCI SOP, Scholarship Opportunities Program. And if you're on our website, all you have to do is click on advising right here, this tab, and that will take you directly to everything you need to know about advising and how to enroll in the prep course. And all you have to do is click right here, and it'll take you to an enrollment page. As I mentioned, this is not done through UCI's Canvas. This is done through Canvas and Structure, so it's a little bit different, but we have instructions there for you to make it streamlined and easy as possible. All right. In terms of what makes a competitive applicant, so we get questions every year from students who kind of want to know, like, what's my checklist? What's my formula to being a competitive applicant? And there's no real set checklist or formula to being a unique and competitive applicant. So really, it comes from your own narrative, your own strengths, your own vision. But there are a few attributes that we do see consistently among our winning applicants. So for one thing, applicants tend to take strategic risks, right? So this is, as I said, these are highly competitive and prestigious awards, and people who win them want to make a big mark, right? Want to take risks, but also have a lot of other things going on as well, right? And so are strategic about how they plan their time, which awards they go for, where they want to take risks, where they want to play conservative, how they want to outline their vision. So we see that a lot. Resilience and flexibility. We talk at times about the quality of grit. I certainly see that a lot among winning applicants. And, for example, I've had a number of candidates who, have gone through for a first application round, have not placed, and have come back, have not placed, have come back again, and maybe on the second or third application cycle, they start to garner more successes, and they start to have won an award or got into a prestigious program or things like that. So the ability to be resilient and to take feedback well and to recognize setbacks as opportunities for growth, talking about a growth mindset, and really taking those as moments to listen and reevaluate your goals, your strategies, and things like that, and not losing confidence, right? So that's a quality that certainly we see a lot among competitive applicants. In terms of why these scholarships matter, there's the obvious prestige associated with them. There's definitely some great bragging rights that come along with winning a Rhodes Scholarship or things like that. It's something certainly that you can put on your resume for life, and it opens up doors in terms of your professional development, both in academics and in career. So there's things to keep in mind for that. And also, it plays a part in UCI's own prestige. So our national ranking is in part dependent on how our students do for these awards. So 4 awards in particular: Fulbright, Goldwater, Truman, and NSF play directly into UCI's national rankings. But for the most part, they matter because it's, again, really about you having a valuable experience in your own personal and professional development, and in getting really a lot of guided help in terms of developing robust grant writing skills. Let's see, I do have somebody in the chat. Strategic risks. So somebody asked a question about strategic risks. So strategic risk can take place in any number of ways. It can be you know, the award that somebody is applying for. It could be you know, the way in which they try and define their research. So research, you know, whether you're in a lab doing something that's already kind of on the beaten path that's being done, or whether you actually set out on your own and create new opportunities there. Same thing for being involved in a service organization. You know, being involved as just a member of the organization versus looking for ways to expand and improve that organization, to sculpt and find your own leadership opportunities within it. It's kind of contextual to define what a strategic risk is. Okay, so we'll take questions at the end, but I do see one more question in the chat I want to address. If we roll in SOP Prep in the middle of the quarter, will we miss part of the instruction? No. So SOP Prep is something that you do completely at your own pace. You can enroll at any time. It's open entry, open exit. Once you're enrolled, as you actually turn in, you know, the journal assignments that are on there, there'll be a student advisor, you know, waiting to read those. You'll receive feedback from them, from the student advisor. And then once you have actually gone through the entire SOP Prep course, done your virtual advisor quiz, then you'll actually have a meeting via Zoom, if we're still in the pandemic, or in person. You'll actually have a meeting with a student advisor, and they will give you access to what we call our pre-application. And that's the pre-application will be the thing that you fill out to initiate your actual scholarship application. So the pre-application for the Big Ten, or for the Trailblazers 10 Awards in the spring, is going to be April 12th. So if you're interested in applying for any of those awards that we were looking at, keep that April 12th deadline in mind and enroll in SOP Prep and complete that course early. Because if you complete SOP Prep after April 12th, you won't be eligible to apply for this cycle. So that's something to keep in mind. It is at your own pace. You know, you'll be eligible for the spring cycle next year if you get into SOP Prep too late. But those are just some deadlines to keep in mind. Right. Okay. All right. So speaking of taking strategic risks and a variety of different competitive applicants for different scholarships, that brings us to our first case study for the day. So we're going to be looking at a number of different past winners from different areas of academics, and we're starting with our guest speaker today, Karishma Muthukumar. So Karishma is a junior this year, and she's double majoring in biological sciences and cognitive science. So she won the Strauss Scholarship. She's our current Strauss Scholar for her service project, implementing conversational care model to improve clinic waiting room experience at Chalk Neurology through conversational care, pairing trained college volunteers and clinical interactions with patient and patient family populations. So that was the service proposal that she wrote. I will let Karishma herself tell you a little bit about the course that it took, and you know what the pandemic brought to it, and just a little bit about the Strauss Awards. So Karishma, let me find you here and unmute you. Oh, you can unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. We can go to the next slide.
Great.
Yeah, so the patient project actually started in the waiting room. So this is sort of the space and the place that I identified. So it really started with patients, right? So in the hospital waiting room, and we had we started off at Chalk Children's Hospital. We actually planned for college volunteers to be volunteering at the hospital, essentially playing games, chatting, and having sort of bringing some positivity to the situation. So next. Yeah, and so because of COVID, actually, we had to sort of transition. So I'd say it was sort of a pivot from patients with a T to patients with a C. So it really went from sort of the physical hospital waiting room to the Zoom waiting room. And even sort of the target population changed. So we started from children in children's hospitals to seniors because of the senior isolation caused by sort of social distancing and the isolation that was sort of present throughout and continues to be present. Next slide. Yeah, so the Patient Project is actually a campus organization at UC Irvine. So it was founded in 2019. And since then, I'd say there's been so many changes and it's definitely evolved since then. So I think being prepared to pivot is sort of one of the main advice I would have for anyone interested in service or interested in sort of community service. And definitely I would say that collaborations with community centers, so not just within UC Irvine, but also the broader OC, and sort of collaborations with community centers, departments, and even existing resources like COVP really did make sure that this grew into like a major project and sort of, I guess the idea became a reality, right? So this sort of community service was really built on this fact that we could build community. So I think community service and community are so held together that this is sort of the basis of why and how the Patient Project really came to be. And I'd say definitely in 2019, I had a different vision for this project. And now I think a few years later, I'd say it's really grown and it's really evolved since then. But it still has sort of that focus on patience and strength. So next slide. So if I were to give some tips for community service, I would say the first thing would actually be to survey the needs of the community. So this was actually one of the first things that my mentors actually advised. And so essentially they asked me, they were like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea, but do patients really need this, right? So actually what I did was I went and I was there as an observer in the exact waiting room that I wanted to volunteer in. So the Chalk Children's Neurology Clinic. And I was essentially waiting there for hours and I spent time sort of evaluating the needs of the community. So beyond just the idea, but like, is this really something that would be necessary in this community? And I think that also shaped how I would essentially create that project. And the next point would be to recruit a team. And one of the important things in recruiting a team is sort of understanding like why everyone is sort of interested in that project. There are people who join for different reasons, and I think knowing exactly like people have different reasons, and I think having a sense of why this is so interesting, I think that could also motivate you as a leader and also motivate each other as a team. So I think having that purpose is sort of the main things that could be a good thing to ask in sort of like an application or sort of an interview for this sort of community service involvement. And then be prepared to pivot. I think, especially this year out of any year, the community service, I think when you first write your proposal or you first get started, I think you might have some idea and then eventually it'll change. So being prepared to pivot, and then leveraging existing resources. So there are so many resources on campus, and it's not necessary that like starting a new organization or sort of starting a new initiative. I think there are resources on campus, and actually the Patient Project was started because we realized that there weren't sort of existing resources, but we still do leverage existing resources to be able to grow beyond sort of an organization. And then finally, networking and collaborating. I think that's sort of what community service is. It really does take a community, essentially, yeah. Next slide. So, I mean, as a Strauss Scholar, I would definitely say apply for the scholarship, you definitely meet a lot of undergraduates from across California. So not just Orange County, but and then everyone has their own passion project, right? So I think that's really inspiring. Like realizing that people are thinking about the same things as you, like how do I get funding? How do I recruit volunteers? These are all sort of common aspects that people think about. And then, so apart from like the thousands of dollars that you do get as a scholar, and for your project specifically, I think the main thing is actually the one-on-one mentorship that you get from like graduate students and people working professionally in the fields that you're interested in. So it's sort of like this long-term commitment and long-term support. And as a scholar, it's not just that 1 year that you are a scholar. The Strauss Foundation really does make sure that your organization and sort of your service goes beyond just that year. And so they're definitely willing to support and sort of help you figure out how we can continue this and how we can really grow from beyond graduation even. Yeah, so if you have any questions, you can feel free to message me in the chat, or I think we're also going to take questions at the end, right?
Right, yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Karishma. All right, so Karishma was just talking about the Strauss Award. So a little more details on Strauss. The Strauss is a $15,000 award. So I believe $7,000 of that goes directly to you. $8,000 goes to fund the community service or public service project that you come up with and that you do over the course of a year. So it's a really, really great award to get started with. International students are eligible to apply. People from all disciplines, all disciplinary backgrounds are eligible to apply. So UCI, and including Karishma's proposal, has had a number of successful applicants who are in the realm of public health. But there are people from all different disciplines and backgrounds that do Strauss projects. So last year, our winner was an engineering major who did a project that had a partnership with Libraries Without Borders, and that involved youth participatory action research. That was organized through community laundries in Oakland, where they're providing internet access, and they're helping people within their communities to research and develop advocacy for problems within their own communities. So there's a huge variety of ways to approach the Strauss Service Project. It's available to you as a sophomore or a junior, and winning the Strauss really is just excellent for, as Karishma was saying, for your professional development with the one-on-one mentorship that you get from people through the foundation. And also in terms of having a signature service and leadership achievement that's on your resume and as a part of your background as you're moving toward your upperclassmen years and as you're going into graduate school. That really can enhance the competitiveness of an application in the future. So it's a really, really wonderful opportunity that everyone should think about. Our second case study for the day was Danielle Estrada. So Danielle came to UCI as a sophomore. So like a lot of UCI students, she was a transfer student. She came from a first generation student from a low income background, and she got involved in a leadership organization for students from that background called SAGE, Student Achievement Guided by Experience, which is a great program that offers all kinds of internship and leadership opportunities. So while she was there, she got involved with the Orange County DA office and had an internship there, which sparked her interest in the legal field in law. And then during her junior year, she applied for the Truman Scholarship, which is $30,000 toward graduate school in a public service related field. And she actually won the Truman Scholarship. And then before going on to graduate school, so she has deferred law school She actually did a program called the California Capital Fellows, which you may remember an earlier slide is one of the new awards that we advise for now. So California Capital Fellows is an award that has judicial, legislative, and executive fellowships to work basically in a one-year paid internship in Sacramento, doing working on policy, legislation, getting experience under senior staff in California state government. So she did that, and then she came back and applied for a Fulbright. So she had a lot of experience, not only in the legal field, but also through teaching and mentoring. So some of you may have heard of the Saturday Academy of Law on campus, where undergraduate students go in and teach topics about law and social justice in local high schools. So she had great teaching experience. She's bilingual, Spanish, English, and she ended up applying for a Fulbright English teaching assistantship in Colombia, which is a great opportunity for her to, as a gap year, for her to get another service experience and to be in another country for a while, teaching and mentoring. So that was Danielle. And currently, Daniela is, she's a policy analyst at the California Department of Social Services, and she'll be going to law school soon. That's a little bit on Daniela. So again, the Truman Scholarship. The Truman Scholarship is one of our fall awards. So you begin applications in October, November, and end at the beginning of winter quarter. It's a unique scholarship in that it funds any kind of degree relating to public service, and you have to have a public service commitment to actually win this award. So not a lot of awards that actually fund professional schools like law schools or MBAs, but the Truman Scholarship is one of those. And it used to be that the traditional Truman Scholarship applicant was interested in politics and law school and those sorts of things. But really, over the years, they've very much broadened their conception of public service careers. People from all across the spectrum, from education to public health, and otherwise apply for the Truman Scholarship now. One thing to keep in mind about it is that you apply for it beginning in your junior year, yet it's funding graduate school. And they're looking at people who have high leadership ambitions. So it takes a unique applicant who kind of already has a vision for where they want to go to end up applying for the Truman Award, since you're kind of already thinking about grad school right at the beginning of your junior year if you're applying for this, which not all of us understandably are. Let's see, get one person in the chat. So here's a question: if we are currently a junior, are we still able to apply? And the answer is unfortunately no for that one. So the application for Truman closed, I believe, Tuesday this week. And Truman is an award for which you can only apply as a junior. So speaking of eligibility, things like that, it's important to keep in mind that units, everybody at UCI takes about 6 million units, but all these external scholarship agencies define your class year by when you graduate. So regardless of how many units you have, if you graduate this spring, you're a senior. Regardless of how many units you have, if you graduate in spring of 2022, you're a junior. Okay. So moving on to the Carnegie Junior Endowment Research Fellowship Internship. So this is one of the 2 internships that we actually advise for. So it's the Carnegie Institute is a think tank. So it's a little bit like Brookings or some of those others that you may have heard of. And the typical applicant for Carnegie is what I guess what we refer to sometimes as somebody who's a bit of a wonk, right? Somebody who's very interested in the minutia and detailed ins and outs of policy, right? Who lives and breathes policy. So that's and research, right? So the internship for Carnegie is for graduating seniors. That's a 1-year internship. For the Carnegie Award, we have 2 students who can be nominated each year for that, and it is getting progressively competitive each year. For that award, one of the unique things you have to write is a brief policy analysis. Yeah, and you do have to have substantive research experience to be able to apply. Some positions may require foreign language skills and or quantitative economic analysis skills. So moving into our Big Ten awards, this case study is for Sunny Liu, who was a Chinese immigrant to the United States. She was interested in all kinds of disciplines. So we see that she was a triple major in anthropology, international studies, and public health sciences. So speaking of UCI students who have a whole lot of credits on their transcripts, Sunny was definitely one of those. So Sunny, through her experiences at UCI, became a very competitive applicant for the Peace Corps. She actually did a year of her Peace Corps experience in Fiji, where she was placed with the Reproductive Family Health Association and led community development projects to empower women and girls there. And then she ended up doing in the middle of that, she came back from the Peace Corps and ended up doing a one-year Fulbright study research public health proposal, reducing stigma of the Ebola virus disease in Nigeria. So she was looking at community education programs and what was unique about those and how they had, during the Ebola epidemic, really helped stem some of the transmission in those areas through those programs. So that was a little bit on Sunny. And Sunny applied for our largest and most popular scholarship, which I think a lot of you have probably heard of, which is the Fulbright Program. So it's the most flexible award that we advise for, and that you can do a Fulbright grant to fund graduate study in a foreign country. 1 or 2 year master's programs. There are plenty of those that are supported through Fulbright. You can do an independent 1-year research project, seeking out your own research affiliate and research institution or what have you through Fulbright. Or you can do what Danielle Estrada did, who we were just talking about, and do a 1-year English teaching assistantship in a foreign country. So Fulbright is funded through the US State Department. It was created after World War II as a way to promote international peace and understanding. So as it's federally funded, it is available to US citizens. So as I mentioned, not only do they have the standard study research grants, they also have a lot of specialty grants that are available to you. For Mexico, the binational business internship is a really interesting one for people who are interested in binational relations between Mexico and the United States and have an interest in working in business in their career and or nonprofit leadership or some leadership capacity like that. And we have a semi-finalist at the moment for the Mexico binational internship. So it's a really good one. This case study is for Megan Braun, who is our most recent Rhodes Scholarship winner. So this was 10 years ago. So she was highly involved on campus. So she was a member of the campus-wide honors collegium. In addition to that, she was a history major and did research funded through Europe, and was very interested in military justice and the just war tradition. And she actually ended up writing some work that was published in a peer-reviewed academic journal in her field, which 10 years ago, that's something that very much really stood out on an application, for Rhodes. At this point, the level of competitiveness for some of these prestigious study research awards is such that it's almost expected that you would have a peer-reviewed publication as an undergraduate to be eligible for it. So she was involved at the highest level of leadership. She did serve 2 terms as president of ASUCI, and she was also the goalie of the women's water polo team. The Rhodes Scholarship, as some of you may know, has like a long history of like wanting people to be involved in sports at some capacity. So for Megan, it was very, very traditional sports involvement, but it's become much more flexible in recent years, and people who are involved in yoga, music, they've really broadened that category to contain all kinds of diverse interests at this point. And Megan, some of you may have heard in UCI news recently, was a clerk for the Chief Justice, John Roberts, and she was actually the only clerk that he brought with him to assist him in the first impeachment trial of Donald Trump, where John Roberts was presiding. So these awards, again, are the most prestigious, famous awards in the world. So Rhodes is unique to Oxford, funds 1 to 2 years of study, graduate study at Oxford University. Gates, some of you may recognize from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that in part funds it. So they are looking for applicants that embody the Gates Philanthropic Foundation's values in terms of making study and research towards the betterment of humanity. That's specific to Cambridge. The Marshall Award is kind of like the UK equivalent of the Fulbright. So the Marshall Award awards students who are from the United States only and who want to pursue graduate study at any university in the UK. It was established to thank the United States in the wake of World War II for the Marshall Plan, which helped the UK rebuild after World War II. It's a very prestigious award, and we just had our first winner in 5 years. So Mulak Kudemi, some of you may have seen a Zot mail going out about her. So she just won, and she'll be going to the London School of Economics this fall on a Marshall Scholarship. Mitchell is sort of like the Rhodes, but in Ireland. And then Schwarzman is a unique scholarship that's a 1-year Master's of Global Affairs in China at Peking University. And so that concentrations there primarily revolve around international studies, interest in policy or business, and people who are interested in applying for the Schwarzman are also really interested in China's role on the global stage and their international achievements and their international role in world affairs. So those are some of those. One of our last case studies was Felipe. So Felipe Hernandez had a story similar to Danielle Estrada's in a lot of ways. So both won the Truman Award, both did California Capitol Fellows, and both did a Fulbright in Colombia. So we don't normally see such overlap among our applicants, but they did have a similar trajectory. So Felipe, he was very involved in service, and he actually created his own nonprofit. Like our guest today, Karishma, so was involved not only in organizations on campus, but also in creating his own. So mentoring, empowering, nurturing through education is what Mente stands for. And that was a nonprofit that really involved helping low-income students become first-generation college students and preparing them for college. And he took that model and he applied it to his service project in Colombia during Fulbright, where he also got involved with musicians and things like that. And then eventually after that, he won the Marshall to do 2 1-year master's programs, one at Oxford, one at Bristol, one based in law, one based in education. And he's currently at Harvard Law School. So he'll be running for office eventually. And it's important to recognize that when we look at these case studies, it's a little bit intimidating, but we're seeing the end products of where some of these students end up. And when Felipe first came to us, earlier on in his undergraduate career, he actually did not consider himself, a competitive applicant, didn't know what he might apply for. And then over the process of years and going through that journey in his narrative, he really gained a lot in his grant writing skills and developing his narrative and his journey and ended up there. So keep that in mind when you do look at these intimidating case studies. And then finally, the graduate scholarships we advise for in the United States are the Knight Hennessy Scholars Award. That's specific to Stanford. So Knight is Phil Knight, the CEO of Nike, and Hennessy is John Hennessy, who's one of the former presidents of Stanford. They got together and created this scholarship that funds graduate study in every single department at Stanford, and they're looking for next generation world leaders. They kind of, they put the bar very high, and they talk about a young Barack Obama being kind of what their ideal applicant would look like. And they're again, very much interested in people who are not only scholars in their field, but also leaders who are passionate about social justice and civic engagement and reforming our institutions. The Paul and Daisy Soros for New Americans is open to people who are, let me double check, I always forget the exact eligibility in terms of New American citizens, permanent residents, and DACA recipients. So to be able to apply for the Paul and Daisy Soros Award, basically both of your parents have to have been born outside of the United States as non-US citizens. And the Paul and Daisy Soros Award is unique in that it funds graduate study of any type, so including professional degrees like medical school and law school. It's very competitive as well. And then NSF, National Science Foundation, I hope a number of us have heard of. It's for people going to graduate studies in STEM, STEM education, social sciences, or psychology. Applying for these awards, application components are pretty similar to your graduate application components, as we've discussed, so that you'll get a lot of feedback on grant writing in terms of policy proposals, also personal statements that can be in large part recycled into your graduate applications. So I wanted to mention that one benefit. And then I mentioned at the beginning that we're not going to give you a checklist. Here is your checklist of things to do. Things that can help you to become competitive for these awards, especially involving research, studying abroad if you are interested in that, pursuing community service, and really, really above all, if you take nothing else from today, establishing really strong relationships with your faculty, your professors, all of the mentors who are going to be writing your letters of recommendation a little bit further down the line. Briefly want to pitch that we have some student employment opportunities right now at SOP. If you can log on to Handshake to find out about these, we're hiring student advisors right now and marketing and communications development intern. So if you're interested in those positions, those are due on February 18th. We also administer every year the ceremony for Phi Beta Kappa. So if you don't know about Phi Beta Kappa, it is the oldest, most prestigious honor society in the United States. It's invitation only. You can't just choose to join Phi Beta Kappa. Your department has to actually selectively nominate you every year. A handful of juniors are nominated every year, every spring, and predominantly it's seniors who are nominated, and that's generally in the top % of the class. And people who are involved in service and leadership outside as well. So if you hear from Phi Beta Kappa in the future, you want to join Phi Beta Kappa. And then here's just a little bit on our contact details and our office. And at this point, I want to go ahead and open it up to those of you who may still have questions. Thank you for attending again. Let's see. So Rebecca, I see that you have a question. You can go ahead and just unmute and ask it.
Hello. I know that the Scholarship Advising Office, it only applies for 12 months after you graduate, and I was wondering, like, does that gap does the entire application cycle have to be within that 12-month gap?
No. So you begin if you. Have you graduated already?
No, I haven't, but I'm about to graduate.
Okay, so if you graduate in spring of 21, and you want to apply with us as a recent alum, beginning an application in spring of 2022, that's fine, even though the application process will take you all the way through fall of 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Sure.
So I already completed the SOP prep course.
Mm-hmm.
So for this quarter, do I have to do it again?
No, once you've done SOP prep, you're done. You have a waiver on any future completions of SOP prep. Also, people who've gone through a scholarship application process with us don't have to complete SOP prep. So have you had a meeting with a student advisor since completing SOP prep?
Yeah, I had one back in fall quarter.
Okay. Yeah.
And
So
it told me to wait for like a session like this one to pop up, and then reconsult?
Yeah, so your next step will be to fill out a pre-application. Are you interested in applying for a spring award?
Yeah, he told me like based on I'm poli-sci major. He
Yeah.
told me based on that and what I'm already interested in to apply for Fulbright, Rhodes, and some other ones.
Great.
Those
So
will
yeah,
come out late February.
so the pre-application will open in a couple weeks. So mid-February is what we're planning on. So if you hadn't heard from the student advisor you spoke with by then, just send them an email and they'll send you the link, and that way you'll be able to log in and submit your pre-application.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions?
I also had a question.
Sure.
So if you're a transfer, your GPA counts as if you're from your transfer, like community college as well, right?
It does, yeah. So for the scholarship agencies, they do ask for a cumulative GPA that takes into consideration your full undergraduate trajectory, including any and all transcript, any and all transfer institutions. Most awards are we consider 3.0 as like a baseline to be competitive overall. We have certainly had Fulbright winners who are 3.0. They do look for an upward trajectory. If earlier grades have been lower, they look for it to be a rising trajectory in your academics. And they do take context into consideration for adult reentries, all kinds of things like that. And there are very few awards. Marshall and Rhodes are some of the only ones that actually have a GPA minimum of 3.7 to apply. But the others, it's something that we're looking at the whole context of your application.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, I had an extra question.
Yeah, sure.
So when you mentioned how for Rhodes and a lot of other scholarships, the applicants had undergraduate research published,
mm-hmm.
Would a Europe project count as that? Like if you managed to get Europe project published?
Yeah, so thanks for pitching Europe. Yeah, definitely. So getting involved in Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program and SERP, Summer Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program, can definitely enhance your competitiveness, and you want to be able to put on your CV that research experience, the amount of the grant, and things like that. So definitely, we love to see that on an application, and we advise people to do that. For some awards, for Rhodes and for Goldwater, the bar is pretty high. So, I mean, certainly that will help competitiveness. It's not quite at the level of a peer-reviewed publication in a national journal, but that's something to think about when you are involved in UROP, right? To not just let the mentorship with your faculty advisors end with the UROP proposal itself, but to ask about how to potentially extend it and what you need to do to take it to that next level when you're thinking about those things. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it's been a real pleasure having all of you. Thank you again to Karishma. If any of you have any further questions that you didn't get to ask, I'll put my email in the chat real quick.
I had a question.
Yep.
Would you rather me email it or just ask now?
You can just ask. We got
Okay,
time for
great.
one more.
Thank you for your presentation. As for the honor societies, I wanted to ask, what would your recommendation or advice be for joining other societies like Pi Gamma Mu or NSLS, which is the National Society of Leadership and Success, if you're familiar with those?
There are a lot that are out there. So Phi Beta Kappa is really the one we know about and is the one that's most prestigious. So, and we can't keep up with them all. So if you do get invited to an honor society, one of the things that I always recommend doing is checking to see if there's a UCI chapter. That's sort of like a litmus test for for its validity and whether or not it's kind of accepted within the campus community. And
Okay.
Definitely strongly evaluate whether or not there are any fees or anything like that associated with it. But if it has a UCI chapter, then chances are it's something reputable and something worth getting involved in.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Welcome. All right. Thank you all again so much for being here. My email is in the chat. Also, our on our website, you'll find our staff email if you have further questions. And I look forward to seeing all of you, I hope, in prep and in a future scholarship application sometime in the near future. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.